Disclosure: all information we have on these cases are public record. We are not making fun of anyone or anything. This channel is for awareness of cases and entertainment purposes only.
Hey y'all, welcome back to our channel. Today Renee's going to be telling us a case, so take it away, Renee.
Taking it away. Today we're going to be talking about mental illness and murder, so if that's not something you're comfortable with, back out of this channel, go watch one of our other videos, or we'll see you on our next one. So schizophrenia is a serious mental illness, and it has many different types. In today's case, we're going to be talking about paranoid schizophrenia, and it has symptoms such as hallucinations, delusions, disorganized thinking and speech, disorganized behavior, social withdrawal, suspiciousness, false beliefs, interpersonal sensitivity, delusions of persecution, and belief you are being harmed or harassed by others, etc. I mean, it goes on. Mm-hmm. So today we're talking about Herbert Mullin. He killed 13 people in California from October 13th, 1972 to February 13th, 1973. So Herbert William Mullin was born on April 18th, 1947 in Salinas, California. And let me just go ahead and say, if I do not pronounce some of these names right, so sorry.
Sherry.
His father was Martin William Mullin, and he was a World War II vet and a furniture salesman after the war. He was very stern, but not abusive. But he liked to tell Herbert stories from his World War II days. So some people think that some of these stories that he was telling his son may have scarred him, in some way, listening to some of this, because some of it wasn't so great.
Yeah, war stories not the greatest.
No. And to tell your kid that stuff.
I know.
Let them be a kid, man.
Mm-hmm. They don't need to know all that stuff.
No.
Maybe until they're older.
Yeah, no. But his mother, Jean Alice Baker, was a stay-at-home mom, and she was a devout Catholic. And so she pushed her, beliefs off onto her children. He also had a sister named Patricia, and his parents were somewhat strict, and they had a lot of rules to follow, but they were very loving. So there was no abuse or any of that stuff going on. They say that Herbert was a gentle, loving, intelligent child, that him and his sister had a good relationship. They got along growing up.
I didn't with my sister.
Oh. I'm sure you do now. You're older. That stuff goes away. Me and my brother beat the crap out of each other growing up.
My brother and sister duct taped me to a chair in the basement.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Shame on y'all. I can't believe you duct taped her to a chair.
My mom was pissed.
I bet.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I've not heard that story.
Yeah. I'm the youngest, so.
So right before he was 5 years old, the family moved to San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And then, after that, as far as his childhood being little, we don't know much about, because evidently everything was fine then. So. Yeah. He went to San Lorenzo Valley High School, and he was very popular. He played football. He was even voted most likely to succeed by his senior class in the yearbook.
Well, I bet they want to revoke that vote.
Yeah. So he had a lot of friends. He had a girlfriend named Loretta. After high school, he planned on going to Cabrillo College to pursue engineering. But right after they graduated high school, one of Herbert's friends, Dean, was killed in a car wreck.
Oh.
And this really upset Herbert. He was, devastated by the whole thing. And he actually set up a shrine in his room for Dean.
That's a little weird.
Which I think is kind of odd. I lost a friend, young like that in a car wreck. And you don't
No.
set up a shrine.
Unless you got one in your closet I don't know about.
No,
Okay.
like, I mean, I have a couple of her things, like a
Yeah,
couple of her
that's
rings
normal.
and stuff that her mother gave me, but like, and they're put away. But like, you don't set up like a shrine to somebody. I mean, that's just odd.
That's creepy a little bit.
But he did go to college,
Oh.
but he started having problems using drugs.
Oh.
And he said that a high school friend named Jim had introduced him to drugs while they were in high school.
It's always the gyms.
I mean, but it's always somebody else's fault too.
Yeah.
Oh, well, he introduced me to that. Well, you didn't have to keep taking that shit.
There's this word, it's called no thanks.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah.
not really a word, but it's,
I mean, N-O.
yeah, no. I'm good.
Like, don't. So, here I go, clearing my throat again 900 times and start my engine. He was using in college LSD and marijuana.
Dang.
At this point, you know, he's in college, he's away from everybody, like he's doing drugs, he's kind of, you know, alone, I guess. But he started missing Loretta. So he left college and went home to see her. And he told her he'd stop using drugs. And he asked her to marry him. And she said yes.
Oh.
So I guess this kind of like, you know, renewed his drive or whatever. So he goes back to school and he does really well. But
Oh, there's that word, but.
he did really well, and he did get his engineering degree. So, I mean, he did, you know, get done with that part. But he went back to using drugs. He kept using drugs. And he ended up breaking off the relationship. Because, I don't know, I guess he was just using drugs and not feeling the whole situation anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know, you know, what he was thinking. But he calls off the relationship. And at this time, the Vietnam War was going on. And, you know, they're drafting people into the war and all that kind of stuff's going on. So he began protesting the Vietnam War. In January of 1968, he applied to register as an objector of the war. So he's basically refusing his rights to military service.
Oh.
So, you know, he didn't get drafted into the war. And they have said that his father was very supportive of this decision. Because I guess where he had been in, you know, World War II and all, you know, he was like, I get it, like, you don't, I wouldn't want to do that either.
Yeah.
So, and he was telling people that Herbert was like a sensitive guy. So, you know, they, I guess, took his word because he was a war vet, you know. So, but here we go. During this whole thing, he's still using. So he started becoming more mentally unstable around this time. Some say like the drugs might have brought on his mental illness faster than maybe it would have happened. Because, I mean, if you really look at schizophrenia, it seems like people are okay up into, you know, like maybe their mid-20s or, you know, like they're okay as young kids.
Yeah.
And then it starts to decline as you get older. But some people say it might have brought it on faster because he was using drugs.
Because that messes with chemicals in your brain.
it does.
Right. Must have been LSD.
Yeah, I mean, he's seeing shit. And, yeah. So he started wanting to do crazy stuff. Like he kept saying he's going to do this, do that, you know, and he never did. One of them was he was going to move to India and study yoga. You know, I mean, just stuff like that. Like, but he never did. So he ended up moving into a trailer on his sister's land. And his sister and her husband started noticing his weird behavior, odd behavior. She talked him into going to Mendocino Hospital. and he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. He was released, but he was supposed to be taking his medication. And of course, you know how that goes. They take it for a minute, and then they believe they're better, and they're like, oh, I don't need this anymore, and they quit taking it. So he didn't take his medication. One day, this is crazy. This is so good. He even asked his own sister to have sex with him.
Oh.
And she was like, dude, no. Like, you're just ridiculous.
Oh my God.
And then when she said no, he asked if her husband would. So he's like, he's going off the deep end here.
What the hell?
So I know, to just.
Oh,
So she was over, like, dealing with this. So her and her husband, Patricia and her husband, asked him to leave. Like, they're like, get out, we're done.
Yeah.
So he left and he got a job as a dishwasher. He's still doing LSD and smoking pot and not taking his meds. One day he wanted to go camping and just sleep under the stars. And he sat up next to a bridge. And a park ranger came along and told him he couldn't camp there. That he was in a spot where it was illegal to camp or whatever. And Herbert tried to stab this park ranger. He just pulled out a knife and tried to stab him. So he was arrested for that, but no charges were filed and he was let go. I don't know why or what, but no charges were filed. And his behavior was just getting worse and worse. He was self-harming, hearing voices in his head. He was, inappropriate sexual advances and gestures and saying things to people, kind of, I guess, like he did his sister and her husband. After the whole thing with the park ranger, the judge did commit him to a mental hospital. He was there for 8 weeks and was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. When he was released, he was supposed to go to like outpatient meetings and keep up with his treatment and his medication. Again, he did not do this. He moved back in with his parents, got arrested for drugs. He was put in and out of mental hospitals this whole time, just in and out, getting arrested for drugs, doing drugs, just chaos everywhere. And he was only 22 at this time.
Whoa.
So, this whole thing's been going on, and he's, really young.
Well, I thought he was going to be in his 30s
No.
or 40s. Whoa, 22.
22.
That's young.
So, he also began to, change his personality types. He would choose to be different people. One of the first ones he chose was to be a hippie with long hair and, beaded necklaces and all that. Then after that, he decided, no, he was going to be a businessman, and he wore a suit and cut his hair shorter and, acted like he was a big important person. Then, this is the one that's just ridiculous. So, not that it's not all ridiculous, but, he decided that he was going to shave his head, wear a sombrero, and fake a Mexican accent.
Oh, ese.
What are you doing? Okay.
What's the shaved head have to do with that?
I know. I don't know. Of course, he couldn't keep a job, and he was broke. Because his mental health is, all over the place. But, like we were saying earlier, okay, you're what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say destined, but you're going to develop a mental illness. You have this in your genes, in your brain chemistry. If you're taking LSD and you already have a predisposition for schizophrenia, it's going to make it worse. So I think a lot of this is the combination
Of
of
the
the
two,
two.
yeah.
You know, just the crazy actions and all that. So he would blame his parents for all his problems.
Of course he did.
I mean, you know, I'm sure they probably didn't do a thing. You
Yeah.
know, he's out here doing this, that, and the other, and he's blaming them. You know.
That's what a lot of drug addicts do. I mean, if
Oh,
you
they
ever
do.
watch the episode, like Intervention and
Yeah,
stuff,
they do.
it's like they don't want to blame themselves for the problem. They want to blame somebody else.
They do. They blame everybody else. It's always everybody else's fault. I mean, you could be drunk as a skunk out here driving around, get a DUI, and be like, oh, it was the cop's fault. He shouldn't have pulled me over. No. Like, you're the one driving.
Yeah, you're
like,
the one who made the decision to get behind the wheel, to do this, to pop that pill, to do all that.
Yeah.
It's your own fault.
Yeah. He ended up, you know, like I said earlier, blaming his parents for everything. So he left their house. And he found an apartment with some other, like, drug addicts and just not so great people.
He was at a trap house.
I mean, kind of. I guess.
Yeah, that's the only thing I could think of.
So-
is a trap house.
He was totally erratic at this point. And just, his mental state was just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So at this point, he started reading books about reincarnation and was like fascinated with that. He started saying he was hearing God speak to him. And that the Lord was telling him to complete a mission. But Herbert didn't know what this mission was. He said he just kept hearing God say, you got to complete this mission, you're a special person, you know, that kind of thing. So, he ended up having to move back in with his parents because, of course, he doesn't have a job. He has nowhere to go. Like, you know. So he moves back in with his parents. Keeps getting worse. He discovered one day that his birthday was the same day as the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. And he thought this had, like, some significance. Like he was important because his birthday was the same day as this earthquake tragedy. And if you don't know about the earthquake in 1906, it was on the coast of California. It was a 7.9. It caused major devastation. Fires, more than 3,000 people died.
Whoa!
80% of the city was destroyed. And it is remembered to be the deadliest earthquake in U.S. history.
Really? Damn.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I know. I was researching that. I was like, whoa, that's awful.
Yeah, why not? Why didn't I learn that in history class? Because I don't remember that. I don't know. I blacked a lot of that stuff out, but
Right. You block high school out like, I'm out, I'm done, I'm out of here. So, of course, you know, he's got all this stuff going on in his head. He thinks this is like all, you know, significant to him. So he begins to believe that deaths hold off natural disasters, like sacrifice.
what the?
So he thought he was going to start killing to hold off more disasters from happening. And he thought this was his purpose. Like this is the mission that God wanted him to pursue. So he said that he heard God tell him that he needed to take some lives in order to save many lives.
What the?
So he also said that his victims would telepathically tell him that they wanted to be sacrificed for this purpose. So like when he would see a person, he said that he would hear them say, you know, me, get me, kill me, like I want to be sacrificed for this purpose.
Oh my gosh.
So Herbert said the Vietnam War deaths held off any disasters up until that point that he was going to have to take over. So, I mean, I guess he's thinking, the wars are, there's so many deaths that has held off all these other disasters from happening since that 1906 earthquake,
Oh, so
So
from the
now-
earthquake to the war.
Yeah, so now all the wars are over, like he's thinking there's gonna be another earthquake, and if he can kill people, then he can hold that off.
The war's over. He's like,
So
it's my
there again,
turn.
it's like, kill a couple to save many, that's what his thinking is.
Wow.
So on October 13th, 1972, Herbert saw Lawrence White walking down the road. So Herbert pulled his truck over and got out and acted like he was having truck problems. Lifted the hood, looking in it, acting like something was wrong. And Lawrence came up to try to help him. And when Lawrence bent in to look at the engine and bent over, Herbert hit him in the head with a baseball bat.
Ooh.
And drug his body off the road, just into the woods there on the side of the road. Left him, got in the truck, and left. So that was his first killing.
So just the baseball bat's the one that
Just
killed
the
him?
baseball bat. He just beat his head in.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So then October 24th, 1972, and I'm so sorry if I do not pronounce this lady's last name right. Her name was Mary Guilfoyle, a student at Cabrillo College. She was walking down the street and he saw her and he offered her a ride. And she just so happened to be running late for an appointment.
Stranger danger.
So she accepted the ride and got in the car. He got out a knife, and while he was driving with one hand, he's stabbing her with the other hand in the seat.
Oh my gosh.
So he took her body to the woods. This is probably like the grossest one of them all.
Oh no.
He took her body to the woods and he literally disemboweled her and said he just wanted to examine her organs.
Yep, that's a heart. Yep, that's a liver.
I mean, that's just weird. Her body was found several months after her murder. Months.
Whoa.
November 2nd, 1972, Herbert went into St. Mary's Catholic Church. He said he was having doubts about, what he was supposed to be doing. So, of course, his mother was Catholic. He's been raised like that. So, he's thinking, I'm going to go in. I'm going to confess my sins, and maybe I'll feel better about this whole thing. So he goes in wanting to confess his sins. He goes into the confessional and starts talking to Father Henry Tomei. And Herbert says that once he starts talking to the Father, that he confessed that he wanted to be a victim I'm flicking on my words here. The Father Henry Tomei volunteered himself, is what I'm trying to say, to be sacrificed for the cause.
Wait, did he say it out loud?
No.
So it was his mental thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I stumbled on my words.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
sorry.
fine. I was just.
So Herbert goes into the confessional and he's going to confess. And then Herbert says he hears Father Tomei say, I want to be sacrificed and volunteer for your cause, which he didn't.
No.
Herbert's just hearing this. So he drags Father Tomei out of the confessional. He kicked, hit, and stabbed him to death.
Oh, Father.
And somebody was there was a lady standing in the corner and she saw everything. And Herbert saw her standing over there.
Run, bitch, run.
And he took off running and just left Father Tomei laying there in the church. Herbert always blamed Jim, the guy from high school,
Getting the
for
drugs.
his drug problem. Here again, let's blame somebody else for what I chose to do. So he sets out to find him. And I think I don't know, this one to me is different. Because he's like just randomly seeing these people. You know, the guy on the side of the road. He saw the girl walking down the road. He decides he's going to go confess his sins and claims he hears Father Tomei tell him he wants to be a volunteer. But this one, he's actually sat and thought about. Like, okay, Jim gave me drugs in high school and it's his fault that I'm on drugs and I'm like this.
Yeah.
So let me go seek him out. So to me, that's a little bit, this whole one is different.
Yeah.
So he went to where he used to live, but he went to the wrong house. And there was a lady named Kathy Francis that answered the door. And of course, she knew Jim, and she didn't think anything about it. And she directed Herbert to Jim's house, which was a couple houses up the street. So Herbert just got the spot wrong, And so he got to Jim's and was confronting him and demanded to know why that he gave him drugs and got him hooked on drugs. And Herbert ended up shooting him. So Jim's wife Joan was in the house too. And she tried, Jim and Joan. She tried to run away and went into the bathroom, and Herbert just followed her and ended up shooting her too.
What?
He went back down the road. Why he did this, who knows why he's doing any of this. He went back to Kathy's house, the lady that he'd run into that directed him to Jim's, and he shot her. And unfortunately, she had 2 sons. And he shot them. He shot Kathy, he shot 4-year-old Damien, and he shot 9-year-old David. And then after shooting them, he stabbed them multiple times also.
What in the world?
And evidently, Jim was still doing drugs. Because when the police found all this, there was evidently drugs at Jim's house. So they thought that those 2 murders in those 2 separate houses were drug related.
Oh, like a
So
drug
they
deal
never,
gone bad.
so they never, they're not putting any of these together, they're thinking it's drug related.
Cops.
So on February 10th, 1973, Herbert was hiking in the Santa Cruz State Park. He came across some boys camping. Robert Spector, Brian Card, David Olinker, and Mark Delabris, I think that's how you pronounce it. Sorry if I'm wrong. He walked over to them claiming to be a park ranger and told them that they had to leave because they were illegally camping. They didn't believe him. They just laughed it off and told him to go away. The next day, Herbert went back.
No, Herbert.
He shot all 4 boys, stole their .22 caliber shotgun and $20.
Just $20?
I mean, this is 1970 something.
Okay, that is a
So
lot of money.
$20 is a little more than it is now. You can barely get a tank of gas for $20. A couple days later, I mean, they haven't even found these poor boys yet. He is driving through a neighborhood, and he saw Fred Perez working in his yard.
Not Fred.
He did a U-turn,
Oh, Yuski.
stopped in front of the house, propped the rifle that he had stolen from the boys a couple of days earlier on his car, and shot Fred once in the heart. This murder was done in broad daylight, and Fred's neighbor saw the entire thing and wrote down Herbert's license plate number and called the police.
Yes.
So the police get this information, they radio it in. They radio the description of Herbert, the license plate number, the description of the car, you know. So an officer sees him and pulls him over. And on the seat of the car is the pistol that he had used to kill Jim and his wife and Kathy and her boys. So Herbert is arrested. But through all this time, they didn't connect any of these murders because they were so different.
Yeah.
They had different MOs. I mean, he's shooting some of them. He's stabbing some of them. He's hitting them in the head with baseball bats. You know, some of them are like Jim. He had drugs in his house. So, like, and they're all different ages. You know, male, female. Like, there's no MO. Like, it's just all over the place. So Herbert had done all this in only 4 months.
Whoa!
Like, it's crazy. Like, he just clicked and started doing, you know, killing people to sacrifice.
From a freaking earthquake.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. I mean, you never know. Like, yes, we laugh, because if you don't laugh, you would be, like, upset and worried, and, you know, because mental illness like this, like, you don't know what goes on in somebody's head. And I know this is controversial, and some people say, you know, well, mental illness needs to be addressed, which it does. I'm not disagreeing with that. But if you have a mental illness and you're not going to take your medication and do the things that you're supposed to do, and you start, you know, having symptoms like Herbert, and, you know, God's telling you to kill people, like, at that point, you don't need to be out in society.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're still, yes, you have a mental illness and you need to be helped, but that part of it, to me, is almost separate from, you know, the murder stuff needs to be addressed. Like, you can't be out running around like, oh, poor pitiful Herbert, he has a mental illness. But no, not poor pitiful Herbert, he's killing people.
Yeah, poor pitiful Kathy, her boys.
I know, exactly.
You know,
so it's like, you know, a lot of people argue on that. But I'm like, you know, I'm sorry you have a mental illness, but if you have that and you're going to be doing stuff like this, you need to be put away. You've got to be out of the public so you're not hurting somebody else.
That's what I'm with you on.
You
that
know,
one.
I mean,
Yeah.
and I know I'll probably get some kickback in the comments on that one, but that's just how I feel. It's my opinion.
So, and you too. I'm with you on that too.
Right.
Just because you have, like, a mental illness doesn't give you the right to go out and murder people. And
No.
you just go, oh, it's just because you're mental.
I know. It's like, oh,
Right.
yeah, go home and cook your dinner. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like, no. And I mean, there's so many different mental illnesses, and, you know, the way it affects people and the things that they do, you know, the outcome of it all.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, you can't, like Kaylor just said, you can't just be like, oh, sorry, you have a mental illness, let's pat you on the shoulder and send you home. Like,
Well, it's like, no.
no. So they charged Herbert with 10 murders.
Okay.
And the trial began on July 30th, 1973, and he confessed to all the murders.
Oh.
But they were trying to figure out whether he was legally sane to go through the trial and everything. So prosecutor Chris Cottle pointed out that some of the murders were premeditated. Like I said a minute ago, where he was talking about Jim, you know, going and seeking him out. Like, to me, that's premeditated.
Yeah.
But public defender Jim Jackson argued that Herbert's delusions made him kill, which I think in some of the cases they did.
Yeah.
You know, on August 19th, 1973, after 14 hours of deliberation, Herbert Mullin was found guilty of first-degree murder of Jim and Kathy Francis because they were premeditated. And then he had 8 counts of second-degree murder for the other victims because they were considered impulse killings because of his mental illness. And at this point, he's only 26.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Golly,
I mean, it's young. So he was charged with the murder of Father Henry Tomei, and the trial began for that on December 11, 1963. Herbert pled not guilty by reason of insanity to first-degree murder, but ended up changing his plea to guilty to second-degree murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison. Mm-hmm. He said he only committed these crimes to save the environment from disaster.
There's nothing you can do.
He claimed God told him to kill a few to save many. He was denied parole 8 times and served his time in Mule Creek State Prison in Lone, California. And he was diagnosed by Dr. David Marlowe from the University of California at Santa Cruz with schizophrenic reaction paranoid type. Mm-hmm. On August 18th, 2022, Herbert Mullin died at age 75 from natural causes while in California healthcare facility. This is kind of interesting. So, while Herbert was in prison, he was cell neighbors with Charles Manson and Edmund Kemper.
What?
Mullin and Kemper were active around the same time. And Kemper said that Mullin had a lot of pain and hate inside him. Kemper told Mullin he was full of shit by saying that God told him to commit those murders, that he had just done it because he wanted to. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was kind of interesting that, like, he's in the same prison with, you know, Charles Manson and Edmund Kemper. Like,
that's cool.
Mm-hmm. So, it says on there, I know Charles Manson was in the same prison, but it doesn't say anything about them being like on the same cell block or anything like that. Mm. But him and Edmund Kemper were actually in cells next to each other. So they actually had conversations and stuff.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I was like, that's pretty cool. So I'm just gonna go over the victims just because, I mean, this is technically really about victims and what happened, you know, to them. Lawrence White, 55. He was killed on October 13th, 1972, just trying to help somebody with car trouble. Mary Guilfoyle, 24, was killed on October 24th, 1972. She was a college student just trying to get to an appointment. Father Henry Tomei, 64, was killed on November 2nd, 1972, just trying to help people get closer to the Lord. Jim, 25, and Joan, 21, killed January 25th, 1973. Husband and wife, just living their lives. Kathy Francis, 29, and her sons, David, 9, and Damien, 4, killed January 25th, 1973. Again, just random, living their lives. They didn't know what was happening. David Olinker, 18, Robert Spector, 18, Brian Card, 19, and Mark I'm sorry, but I cannot say his last name. Drabellis, 15. Killed February 10th, 1973. Just a group of friends camping, having a good time. And Fred Perez, 72, killed February 13th, 1973. And he was just doing yard work in his yard. All these people died for no reason. I mean, it was just senseless because Herbert thought he heard God telling him to do it. That's like, just absolute senseless.
Ridiculous.
It's crazy.
And just to think that the Kathy, like, she's my age. Mm-hmm. Imagine I had 2 kids right now. But I'm like, whoa.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it kind of happened over time, I guess. Yeah. You know, it started and he just kept declining. And of course, he wasn't taking the medication he was supposed to be taking. You know, I mean, who knows if he would have actually went to, you know, the outpatient doctor's appointments, the meetings, the, you know, taking his meds, all that stuff, that he would have not done this.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, it is hard. I know that I have a hard time taking my medication, and man, it's one of those things. It's like when it comes down to something like big like this, I would remember to.
I mean,
And
you think you would.
And have like a family member. Like, why did their parent? Why I don't understand his parents. Why the parents didn't,
Yeah, I don't know.
stay in on that. So he didn't go to a psych hospital for his stay, or jail. So he was actually
No, he was in jail. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he was in jail.
Most of the time, they usually send him to a psych facility.
No, he went to prison.
I mean,
Yeah.
whatever.
But I mean, it's like, okay, so you have high cholesterol.
Mhm.
You start taking cholesterol meds and your cholesterol goes down. Oh, I don't need it anymore. My cholesterol's down. No, it's down because you're taking your meds.
Listen,
You know what I mean?
I'm
you
bad
have
at
to
that.
take your meds.
I was on blood pressure medication, and my blood pressure went down to normal, and
I'm
I stopped
reaching for
taking
my drink again.
Yeah, you have tickle in your throat. And I stopped taking my blood pressure medicine, and then it kept it went back up, and I just didn't. And then I lost 82 pounds, and now I'm not even on it anymore, but because I had the gastric sleeve. But I mean, it's like you said, you know, it doesn't matter. That's one number one things, like you said. If he did start taking his pills, he started feeling better. It's because of the medicine. It's working.
Yeah.
If you stop taking that, it's gonna wear off.
Right. Exactly.
Like, it only stays in your system for a little bit, and then your body's like, and it flushes out.
Well, that's why you have to take things once a day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not, you know.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, you just don't know what their mind is doing. You know what I mean? You'll just never understand it. It doesn't matter, I don't think, how long you go to school, how long you, like, I don't know. You just never really understand what their thought process is.
The brain is still the number one fully not discovered. Like, what am I talking about? Like, not fully discovered of what it can do, and what it can hold, and everything like that. I mean, there was a video of a guy. He, I don't know what he is, a neuro something, and he did an interview with somebody, and they're like, "Oh, what's the worst brain scan you've ever seen?" And it was of a 17-year-old boy or something like that. He's like, that is the worst brain I've ever seen. Like, he was, like, crazy, like psychotic craziness and everything. And it's crazy how your brain can show something like that.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, like, I've been around, I went to school with a kid who was schizophrenic, and I even have a patient of mine who's schizophrenic, and he's the sweetest guy you ever know, and you never know that they have it because he is on his medication.
Yeah.
And everything, and he's just the sweetest guy. He laughs and jokes and everything, and I mean, it's crazy what a pill can do, and if you're not taking it, what it can lead to.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, if he'd have just took his meds and went to his doctor's appointments, maybe none of this would have happened.
And you know what?
And he was evidently smart. I mean, he went to college, got an engineering degree. Like,
when you were talking about that, like when he had friends, he was popular, all that. It's like, oh, this isn't really usually a checkpoint that is checked on like a killer's list. Like, you know, most of the time they're loners, they don't finish school, or I mean, they are smart. A lot of them are smart. A lot of
them are very intelligent
and everything. But I'm like, and you know what? And here's something too. Like, schizophrenia is something I would be afraid to have, because if anybody out there, like, if you're at the house, like you do it sometimes too. Like, you'd be like, what? Or like, nobody said anything. Or, I thought somebody said my name. Like, it kind of makes you mad a little bit. It's like, what? Because like my mom, I was in my room the other day, and I thought I heard her say my name. I walked on. Did you holler for me? She's like, no. And like, for a moment, I got mad. Because I'm like, well, what the heck was that?
Yeah.
Like, I swear I heard something. And then, like, but have to have that.
I've thought I've heard my son say, "Mom," and he'd be asleep or something.
Yeah.
Like, and you're like, what?
And that'd be scary to have that all the time.
It would be.
I mean, no, all mental illness sucks.
Yeah, it does.
Depression, all that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's horrible. And the guy, I mean, it does.
And yeah, we're not making fun of anybody with mental illness. Like it's a, it's a serious thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like I said earlier, if you're going to go to this extreme, it has to be addressed.
Yeah.
Like you cannot be out in the public.
Yeah. You just
hurting
can't
people.
be like, oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's not okay. Like, he needs help.
Mm-hmm.
And for us to just kind of keep pushing it aside, it isn't helping.
No.
It needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm. Whether it's somebody that's going to take their meds and do the right thing, or whether it's somebody like Herbert Mullin that's going to, start killing people and hearing voices and all the things. Those two things have to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you're going to have to address them separately because they're two different situations. Yeah. But you either take your meds, or if you end up like him, you're going to be in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't, But anyways, we're getting too serious. Too serious, man.
No, we're not joking.
I know.
Like our normal videos.
That was a major serious. But not serious. I'm wearing a hat today because I haven't washed my hair in like 3 days.
It's okay. My hair's dirty too.
It's so dirty. I'm like, nope, today's hat day.
I swear it's like every time like a new video comes out, I've got a different hairstyle. Different color, different cut. Give it a little while and it'll be different again.
She looks good with bangs though, right?
I always had bangs.
Yeah.
My hair's not red anymore. It's
well,
brown.
It's kinda,
it's kind of
brownish red.
Yeah. But it'll be different in a couple weeks. So look how we're at.
Right. Well, that was the story of Herbert Mullin. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Subscribe. Hit that like button.
Subscribe, guys. We're so happy. Please. And also leave comments. We love to go through new comments. We've had 2 comments already. Well, we've had some other ones. Like Misty. Hi, Misty. Like she likes comments and stuff. We love you, Misty. And but like there was another lady that commented. I messaged you. I was like, oh my gosh, and it was like a really long
one. And I'm like, what? Somebody's watching us? Like,
I know, I love it. So
oh my gosh,
we read everything. Like we read all the comments. We look at everything. So if you just want to talk to us,
But I will tell you, I'm gonna go ahead and say this right off the bat because I know we've not been on YouTube long or whatever. But if you start some crap, you're gonna get blocked.
Yeah.
Like I'm not putting up with a bunch of okay? Just saying.
Yeah. We don't believe
we're not gonna be mean to each other and all the stuff in the comments.
Yeah,
no.
So, we were mean to each other enough.
Yeah.
Leave that to us.
Right. But anyways, thanks for hanging out with us today, and we will see you on our next case. Bye.
Bye-bye.